We have a special guest in the studio, and he's also my director of programming, James Michael Keats. You may remember him from season 4, episodes 6 and 7 of The Walking Dead. Did I have that right?
I think it was 3. It was 3 and 4. It was 3 and 4.
3 and 4. Okay. And he's been on the movie set. We had a really interesting talk on my back deck several months ago. I had an idea for a movie, and he explained to me how movies work.
Yeah.
And how many people are on a set.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
These movies made with an iPhone where there's 3 or 4 different people, the first Matt Damon movie, and small budget kind of thing are just a rarity when you've got big time stars like an Alec Baldwin, who is part of this movie called Rust. And you can just look at the picture of the church and all the camera equipment, everything that was in it. I think there were 16 people in the church at the time of the shooting that were part of whatever it is. But James Michael Keats can expound on that a little bit. But we were talking about, you've been on sets, obviously, in The Walking Dead, where there were guns used. Just talk about how that works, talk about the handlers, talk about the safety protocols that go along with that when you're doing movies.
Yeah, so they have this person that's called the armorer in the case where you have weapons that are being used as props. And in the case of Western, those guns have to fire. They have to be closely monitored, and so what happens is the armorer will come around and hand out the weapons to the cast members that are going to be firing those for the scene that they're doing, and then as soon as the scene is done, they will collect them back. At least that's the way that it's supposed to go down. On The Walking Dead, they would hand out sticks if you're hitting zombies with sticks or whatever. Those would be handled by a prop master, and then they would collect them right the way back up. So cast members aren't really supposed to be handling those outside of the actual shoot. And my understanding from what happened was, I think that people were shooting those guns off when there was downtime just because they were in the middle of nowhere as a Western. And it wasn't the cast, it was the crew. This is all, I guess, still allegedly the case.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess they were.
Well, and one of the armorers, and I forget his name, there were 2 of them. There was a female and a male. The male had been fired from a previous movie because of unsafe practices. He's admitted to checking the chambers, but doing it quickly. And he's like, I may have missed something. I mean, he's admitted his guilt, which really is going to take a lot off Alec Baldwin, who, as salacious and as sexy as the story is, it appears that he will not be charged with any negligence in this particular case. He did point the gun, and you can bring this up. We always talk about every mic's a hot mic. I even tell my kids with Nerf guns, don't ever point them at someone's face. Don't ever point anything that can shoot any projectile at anybody.
Right.
Period. Unless we're having a balloon fight or we're outside and we're doing this. But don't ever hold any. And certainly when you're talking about a real Colt 45, and I think that was the gun that was used in this particular case, don't ever point it at someone. Now, Alec was doing that. I guess he was pointing it towards the camera person or towards the lens to practice his scene. And so people were like, that's probably not the best thing to do. But you go into it, you're handed the gun, you're told it's safe, and so you feel like you can do whatever you want. That's a really great point you brought up, because the question is, as a movie fan, I'm like, how in the hell was there a live bullet?
Well, that's all
Why was there even a live bullet on the set? There shouldn't be. When you're talking about, if you're shooting a cannon off, there shouldn't be real cannonballs on the set. How in the hell did a real bullet get in that chamber? I never even thought of the idea of you're in the middle of nowhere. And where is it, New Mexico?
Yeah.
And you're probably shooting stuff off the set. So it's super scary, super sad. And the fact that a woman lost her life in it is crazy. Now, you talked about the sticks. Obviously, sticks, you can smack somebody with a stick, and that's not going to probably kill you. From a safety protocol standpoint, this sounded like that was it's hard to believe that Alec Baldwin would be, and I think he was executive or co-producer of the movie. It's hard to believe that they would be cutting corners on stuff, whether it be gun shooting, but it appears that because of the cost of the production in the film itself, that they didn't take proper safety protocols, and maybe that's why they brought this guy on, because they were kind of rushing through the safety protocol. Can you kind of get into that a little bit?
Yeah, well, the second part of the armored team, I think that she had only been an armor for one show previous to this one, and she had just gotten off the set. Apparently, she did a really good job, so they invited her onto this set. But yeah, definitely things get moved along, Tony, really fast when they're about to shoot a thing. Again, the question of why there's a bullet on this set is a big question mark, but they're like, okay, is everybody ready? Okay, cool, bring this thing over here and do that, whatever. And so I'm sure that this I don't know if it was the male or the female that was actually doing the arming for this scene, but they really push the prop people along in cases like this. And so I was thinking maybe it could have just been a rush of time. Everyone's talking about moving quickly, and yeah, some got missed, but I have no idea how we don't miss checking the chambers or something like that.
James Michael Keats joins us. He's the director of programming here, first and foremost, on Tony Kurre Radio. But before that, he was in movies and was in The Walking Dead in seasons 3 and 4, or episodes 3 and 4 in season 4. And you can Google him and see his pictures, and we're super blessed and grateful to have him as part of our crew. So we were talking about just exactly how many people are on a set when you're talking about movies, because for something like The Walking Dead, there's a lot of extras. Can you just talk about, because when you explained to me in detail about how they set things up, the things they say before they go live, do you need to be there all day depending on when your part is? Do you know if your part is going to be shot between 1 and 3 o'clock? Do you need to be on the set in the morning? And particularly for celebrities like Alec Baldwin, he was mentioning before the shooting happened how exhausted he was. He's like, this shoot is killing me. And I don't know how old Alec Baldwin is, but I'm thinking, okay, you're making $10 million. Shut the hell up. I mean, you're filming for 3 or 4 days a week, and it's not like that. It's a regular job, right?
Yeah, well, we get the cold call sheets. You kind of know that week what you're going to be looking at if you're principal cast, and obviously he is. So I'm sure he knew, what days he was meant to be there. As far as extras go, though, just to speak to what you had asked, they'll like episode 1 of season 4, there was like 200 people there. They always tried to outdo, the last season, right? So they wanted to open with just a ton of extras, and yeah, they have to be there all day, and then they'll be like, okay, we have a scene, we want you and you and you and you and you, whatever, and then they go and rush them through makeup or whatever and get them on set, and that's how it goes. But as far as the principals go, they know precisely when they need to be there, and they get called over with a handler or something like that. So it's a little bit easier for those guys.
Yeah.
The part I don't understand, and I don't know if you know this part, and I've been trying to catch on the news. I don't handle guns. I don't know about ammunition and stuff. And I understand, the question about why there's a live round. How do blanks when there's not a live round, but it's got to be realistic, what are they using, and what is getting discharged? Because I've heard about shrapnel, but not necessarily a bullet. Like, what is it? And I know I might sound like an idiot asking that, but I literally don't understand that part.
So it depends on if you want special effects or not. And if you do, they use something called a squib round, and they use this a lot on The Walking Dead. If you need a projectile to impact a cast member, they need to have a little something to react to, and the sound people need to have something that they're going to overlay it to. So what happens is they shoot a little. It's like a jelly, so you get a little bit of splatter,
like a paint gun kind of thing.
It's kind of like that, but it's not quite as hardcore because they're not shooting paint rounds. I mean, that'd be kind of rough. But yeah, they do have that. And if they don't need that effect, then what happens is they're just firing off a loud round or something, and they may capture that for audio. They may put that in post. It just depends on the needs of the set and or the show, and then also how much money they have to toss around.
So now they're talking from here on out, and this is and it's unfortunate because it's one person, and it's unfortunate that one person died. But they're talking about overhauling the entire way that they do Hollywood movies now with no real guns. If you anyone watch a Star Wars movie, you realize that every gun they were all made, but they're futuristic guns. They didn't exist.
Right.
And so they're making, so in any cowboy movie or any movie where there's a pistol, any crime scene, you're not allowed to use, they haven't put this into play yet, but you won't be allowed to use a real pistol on the scene.
You have to be a fabricated,
which you would think wouldn't be that difficult to do, but if you're looking for something to fire now, and they're also talking about using computer animation to make it look like they're using a real pistol.
CGI,
can you talk about is that doable?
Yeah, I mean anything's doable. It's Hollywood, but the the process of creating and fabricating like something that looks good and so visually it looks good and it has the ability. If there's like if it's a machine gun, you got to have all that action,
right?
There's like shells flying out and noise being made and stuff like that. All of that is doable, but now we're talking about really asking for a lot more money from props. They're going to have a bigger budget, which money is already so like it's huge. Like if you want to make a movie, you got to have a lot of money to pull it off. And if you have all these weapons and things where you're creating new stuff, I mean, they already create like the prison in Walking Dead. They stinking built that thing,
Yeah.
Like, at least the inside. They gutted a big building and turned it into that, and it's all modular and you can move stuff around. So making movies is expensive, and this just adds another component. But I mean, really everything in the film industry has been sort of changed and resolved to do different things based on past experiences, and this is just another example of that. Everyone on that set literally has one job to do so that there's this sort of continuity of responsibility so they can see who they have to fire, you know, like if something goes wrong.
James Michael Keats joins us here. He's been in movies, does a lot of acting stuff, was in The Walking Dead, and he's also the director of programming here for Tony Kurre Radio. So whenever there's a plane crash, people freak out. I'm not flying anymore, but we know that you have a one, and I saw this last night, because the guy who beat the hell out of the stewardess on the American flight, I guess a couple of days ago, it's out of control. You have a 1 in 5.4 million chance of dying in a plane crash. All right. You have a 1 in 4,789 or something being in a car crash. Okay. You have a much better shot at killing yourself, driving yourself, than you do flying across the country, particularly when you're putting in 2,000 or 3,000 miles, depending on where you're flying. But when we see that, it scares the hell out of us. Right. So this is scary. We've lost a life here. But then I'll just take the Die Hard franchise. It's obviously got to be incredibly safe to be in a Hollywood film, assuming that it's something that, and that's again with a name like Alec Baldwin, you'd think it would be to the nines as safe as it possibly could be. Every week there's 65 more movies coming out that involve guns and shooting. Yep. I would think it's incredibly safe in Hollywood to be in a movie where you're being shot repeatedly, correct? This is just one of those times where it fell through and the armor didn't do his job.
I honestly think we should be careful speaking about the armorers because, I mean, the fact that there was a live round on set, and apparently, Tony, there were 2 incidents on that show where there was like live rounds going off,
and people walked off right before
yes.
the shooting, saying
yes.
this is not safe. Yeah,
and so that was the thing, and it was. I read that it was the crew that was firing these guns off. No one should touch deadly weapons except for the armor and the cast it's designed to for the period of time they actually need to use the thing to get the shot, and then all of those are taken and put away right. and checked over and over and over and over again. I mean, this is literally this was negligence, but I don't think it was the armorers. I suppose the investigation will show us more. Let us work back.
You know, it almost sounds like a movie idea in and of itself.
Absolutely.
That you got some crazy psycho armor that makes it onto a scene. He wants to knock off the best or best actor or actress in a particular movie and sets it up. Okay, so you're going to shoot this person. Okay, everything's good. You're handing it right. I
actually thought that. I thought that it could have been some sort of hate from like somebody, but speculate. It was all speculation on my part. But apparently he was practicing a cross draw, and it was a head-on like close-up shot. So that's why he was pointing it at the camera. He wasn't like, let me point a gun, just to do it. But the other thing that I'll mention just at last is that if he was practicing, they weren't doing all that. Sound speed. Let's go. Let's get ready. We're about to say action. Right. It wasn't like that. He was practicing. So I don't know, man. It sounds super weird. There's a lot of details that need to get fleshed out.
Now, what if we found out that this armor had a relationship with a cinematographer who was killed, and they just had a nasty fight 2 nights before he handed the gun to Alec Baldwin, knowing that he was going to shoot her? This is Clue, man. This is Knives Out 3 is what it is, right?
Next week.
Next week on the Kurre and Klapow Show. James, thank you so much. And by the way, James Michael Keats will be doing a show here on Tony Kurre Radio as well. Awesome. You should do. I mean, I know you want to do a radio show because he loves classic rock and roll, but you should do a show about movies or about acting.
Let me hit you with it next week, man.
What do you call it?
Acting.
There you go.
That's very nice.
I got news for you. There ain't a show on the face of the earth that has to do with acting. It'd be very interesting. You could go through what it's like to be on the set. You could talk about all the work it's entailed in doing. You could talk about how to become an extra because you did it. I never knew that you could get on Facebook to be an extra in a movie.
It's metaverse, by the way.
Yeah.
Metaverse. Meta world peace.
Metaverse.
Yeah, but is Facebook still Facebook, right?
Yeah, I'm literally just being cheeky because I have feelings in this department.
So now when we post something, are we on the Meta?
Yeah.
Instead of the Facebook?
Turn on the Meta. Are we live on the Meta?
Let me check my Meta.
I don't like Meta. I feel like, first of all, I want to know how much money they spent marketing to come up with Meta. Because freaking Meta, that's too easy.
Maybe that's why they did it.
You think
it's got to be something you remember. It's got to be quick and easy.
I know, but
we're talking about it. We remember it.
That's because it sucked, because it was Facebook. The only reason we remember Meta is because of Facebook.
And, Facebook was cool because Facebook described what the hell it was. It's a book about life and it's your face.
Let me tell you, this is another show. But the whole naming convention for companies and sort of how they go about it blew me away when I got involved with marketing and branding people, because sometimes it is, it's a name, it's Facebook, Adaptogent is a good example. But I've been involved with other companies, particularly when the market's pretty saturated, and like I've been involved with health companies. There's only so many health things. So then what they do is they make up words, or they use words that have nothing to do with the company. So I've always said I wanted a company called Mahogany. I wanted a health company called Mahogany just because I like the way that word sounds.
You could.
Well, so the company now that I'm involved with is named after an island in Italy that was a blue zone, but they couldn't name it after the island itself because there's like a trademark. You can't call it. So they just changed a letter to make it a different word, and they did the analysis on the letter. It was letter I because it looked appealing in the. I mean, you listen to it and you're like, what the? And that's how it works.
Well, the truth of the matter is, if that company becomes successful, there's a reason behind why it's called.
Absolutely.
I saw the liquor company Drizzle, and it's a picture of a grizzly bear. Drizzly. Get it? And I'm like, that's real creative. What a bunch of drunk dudes sat around. What are we going to call it? I don't know. You drank like a bear. Let's call it Drizzly. That's a great idea.
Yes.
Yeah, for every Drizzly.
That's right.
Or pillow.com or whatever that makes
that
sense.
Is why,
because we always say that whenever you have a business, you need to tell what your business is and its name. Those rules are out the window.
That's why here
it's Tony.
It's freaking Tony Kurre.
Well, and that's why we did away with K-Cast.
Because we
what
tried.
The hell's K-Cast? Well, my name starts with K.
Kick-ass?
It's broadcast. It's K-Cast Radio. K-Cast Radio. Like, that's dumb. And I'm like, okay, how about Tony Kurre Radio? Does that describe what we're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. All right.
Your egomaniac.
Shut the fuck up.
Kurre is a nice name. Kurre is and so is Tony.
You would not believe how many people have reached out to me saying thank you for finally calling this what it is.
That's right.
Just call it what it is. And I was talking to a good friend of mine, Jay Willoughby from Black Jacket Symphony yesterday. We had a conversation. I talked to him about coming over here and doing some stuff. Yes, he's already doing a show. And I was like, do you have a deal with them? He's like, no. And I said, come on. But we were talking about, calling it. He's like, I have a really hard time selling. And I was like, I hear you. He's like, because I don't like to go door to door and sell myself. I said, that's why you got to hire someone to do it for you. And he's like, I can't. I said, I understand.
Yeah.
He said, it's weird. And I said, I'll use the analogy I've always used. It's always much better to have a woman say your name during sex than say your own. Oh, Tony Kurre, you're so good. Tony Kurre Radio, you're so good. It's much better when the hot blonde with the big boobs is saying it while she's on top of it.
I've always told you, you're going to have to get over that issue because you are an entity. You are a brand.
Yeah.
You're not Tony Kurre, you're Tony Kurre.
Well, I was alone last night saying my name, screaming my name. The dogs were howling. It was great.
Well, that's just weird, dude.
That was good
Jeez,
last
I'm
night.
glad I'm back.
I lasted 35 seconds.